What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the lounge. It's your boy Zach coming back at you with a deck profile today. This past weekend, we all watched Virtual World take down yet another LCS, proving once and for all why a deck that can turbo out True King of all calamities is a force to be reckoned with in any metagame. So, of course, I decided to pick up the deck. It has a playstyle that I really enjoy. Now, I'm not claiming that this is going to be the spiciest or the best list that you'll ever see in your life, but this is what I'm currently playing, so I really hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, subscribe to Bamani Lounge and give us a like to let us know you want to see more content just like this. And without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So, of course, to start things off, we have 3 copies of Lulu. This is basically your Stratos for the deck, and for those of you who don't know how Virtual World works, all of the Virtual World main deck monsters are either level 3 or level 6, and they're either Wind Psychic monsters or Earth Worm monsters, and all of them except for one have a similar effect. It's an ignition effect that activates and resolves in the hand. You target a Virtual World card you control, and then you send a different type of card, monster, spell, or trap, to the graveyard, summon the monster, and then each of them does a different thing after that. So Lulu is basically your Stratos for the deck. You target, let's say, a trap, and then you dump a spell and you add a monster. Gets all of your plays rolling. And the next card, we're going to have 3 copies of Lao Lao, or Roshi. This one is a Monster Reborn. Now, one thing to be aware of with Lao Lao is that you are not allowed to summon a monster with the same name as whatever you sent to the graveyard. So if you sent a monster, you can't summon a monster with Lao Lao's effect that has the same name. So people we're kind of in the early stages of people knowing what this deck does, so people are soft cheating a lot with Lao Lao. So just be aware of that. You cannot summon the monster if it has the same name as what you sent to the graveyard. And the last Wind monster, we've got 3 copies of Nyan Nyan, or Kitty as I like to call her. So this is your only Virtual World monster that actually does not summon itself from the hand. Instead, it has an effect that lets it summon itself from the graveyard. So this is basically your core normal summon of the deck. And if a level 3 or lower monster is normal or special summoned to your field, except during the damage step, then you can summon Nyan Nyan from your graveyard as a tuner, because it's not naturally a tuner. Summons itself as a tuner, and then it gets banished when it leaves the field, which is completely fine because there are cards that actually want your cards to be banished in this deck. But also, Nyan Nyan, when it is banished, can shuffle back any of your banished cards. And that includes face-down banished cards. It's kind of like a similar effect to Cypher Lord Omega. So this one's just really strong. And then next, moving on to the Earth monsters, we have 3 copies of Gigi. Think of this one as like a Skarm, but for the graveyard. So at the end phase, after you've used its effect and summoned it and dumped a card, then at the end phase, it'll add back one of your Virtual World monsters from your graveyard. Now, usually that's going to be Lulu if you don't already have it, or Lao Lao because you want to have a better follow-up for the next turn. So Gigi's really strong. Play 3 copies of that. And then last Virtual World monster, we have Kirin, or Lily. This one is basically a double Foolish Burial. I honestly am thinking of cutting this one to 2. It's probably the weakest one, especially when you start getting into the grind game. But for now, 3 copies I think is correct because it's just more Virtual World names. You want to always have plays. So that's it for the Virtual World main deck core. And onto the hand traps, because we have plenty of room for hand traps. Old Faithful, Ash Blossom, and Joyous Forehead. This card is pretty much always going to be in my main deck for as long as it's legal at 3 copies. It's just generically good against everything, so nothing more to say. And then, of course, we have 3 copies of a smashy Rock Boy coming in to ruin your day. This card is definitely necessary. Good Virtual World players are playing through it and still ending on calamities anyway. But it's nice to have a card that can be used both on your turn 0 when your opponent's going first, and also can be used to prevent you from dying when your opponent's trying to establish their board. So yeah, this is just a really good card. We definitely love Nibiru in this house. And then, of course, we have our 3 Gammas and the Brick. Gamma is just really strong, especially because your monsters activate and resolve in the hand. And that means you will not control any monsters when you're activating them. So if your opponent decides to activate a monster effect, like say you're targeting your spell with a Lulu, and then your opponent uses Trident to try and pop it, then you just Gamma, negate, and then your effect goes through anyway. So that's really, really strong. Gamma is just also really good, one of the best hand traps. Also, Nyan Nyan can put back the driver into your deck if you need to use Gamma twice in a game, so that's just a thing that you could do. And that's going to do it for the hand traps. Moving on to the spells in the deck, we have 3 copies of Virtual World City Kowloon. I think I'm saying that right. This card is just bonkers, guys. So first of all, you place a Virtual World Gate card face up in your spell and trap zone. It does not activate the card, it just places it face up, which is pretty neat. So you have a couple of continuous spells and traps in the deck that you can then use to target with your Virtual World monsters. So you want to open Kowloon every single time that you can. And so normally you're going to be putting the trap face up, but you can also put the other one face up. It's also worth noting that Kowloon has a couple of bonus effects. So after you place the Virtual World card from your deck face up in your zones, then if you have 2+ Virtual World Gate cards, then all Virtual World monsters you control gain 200 for the rest of the turn. If you have 3+, you send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. And if you have 4, you special summon up to 4 Virtual World monsters with different names from your extra deck. This card is just insane, and it's only going to get better as we continue to get more Virtual World support. And then we have 3 copies of Virtual World Gate Qinglong. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. So obviously you can banish it from your graveyard to search for a Virtual World monster and then send a card from your hand to the graveyard. So if you have like a dead copy of Gamma, you can send that, or any other card that you don't want. This card is just insane, because not only is it a free search when it's in the graveyard, but on field it's also a free monster negate, and you just always want to make sure you have Qinglong in the graveyard because, again, this deck is not about winning on turn 0. This deck has a grind game like nobody's business. So Qinglong is definitely one of the good targets to place face up in your spell and trap zone with City. And then, of course, we're playing so many 3-ofs in this deck, it would be remiss not to flex our ulti Desires, am I right? No, yeah, Desires is just so good in this deck because you're playing so many 3-ofs that the chances of you banishing all 3 copies of any one card is like literally 1%, and even if you do that, Nyan Nyan can still shuffle them back into the deck. So like, Desires is literally free money in this deck. I mean, it says draw 2, guys, you know how I feel. And then a couple of powerful 1-ofs. We have E-Telly, Call by the Grave, and Upstart. So E-Telly, we obviously have a bunch of psychic monsters that are level 3 or lower in the deck. This card is just really nice as an extender. Called by the Grave, I know that like probably the most optimal builds are playing Tactics, but I'm a poor boy, even though I flexed ulti Desires 10 seconds ago, you know, whatever. But I can't afford Triple Tactics Talent right now, so I'd probably be playing that if I had it, but you know, it'd be like that. Call by the Grave is also just like a really nice flexible card. If you need to banish something out of the graveyard, just have a DD Crow effect, that's really nice. And of course, negating stuff is never not going to be good. So E-Telly, Call by the Grave, and then Upstart because we are playing 39 cards, technically, I guess. And then we only have 3 traps in the deck, and that is our 3 copies of Virtual World Gate Chuche. Again, please correct me if I'm saying that wrong, but this card is just absolutely insane. The fact that you can just basically activate it on turn 1 with City is nuts, because you instantly have something to target with all your Virtual World monsters. But then this is also a free like Trident pop every single turn, as long as you have 2 Virtual World cards with different names from each other that are banished. So it shuffles them back to recycle your resources and pops a face-up card on the field. And that's any face-up card on the field. So you can actually pop your own cards, which is, you know, it doesn't come up super often, but it is like very relevant sometimes. But wait, there's more! Of course, it's not a modern Yu-Gi-Oh card unless it has a busted graveyard effect as well. During your main phase, you can banish it from your graveyard to target a virtual world monster you control and either increase or decrease its level or rank by 3. So this is how you make your Synchro and Xyz plays work out even when the levels don't necessarily line up. And of course, it's a hard once per turn on both of its effects. So, that's gonna do it for the main deck, guys. Let's move on to the extra deck. But before we get into the extra deck, I do want to give a big shout out to Stay Classy LLC. We're not sponsored by them or anything. I just really, really like this field center. They have a bunch of different really cool designs and they're stainless steel, so they're going to last forever. Go check them out if you haven't already. And thanks again, Stay Classy LLC, for this dope field center. Colossus is my best boy. You know how it is, guys. All right, so moving on into the extra deck. We have 1 copy of Virtual World Beast Juju, 1 Coral Dragon, and 1 Stardust Charge Warrior. These are all of our level 6 synchros, and these two kind of fill similar roles, and these two kind of fill similar roles. So first of all, Stardust Charge Warrior, on summon, draws a card. It's also like a mini Ultimate Conductor because it can attack all special summon monsters your opponent controls once each. So that's really nice if you need to clear boards. It only has 2,000 attack, so it's probably not going to come up too much, but it is nice. Coral Dragon is a tuner synchro monster, so that's really relevant for helping you to climb up into further synchro plays, but it also has the free spot removal of discarding a card and popping a card on the field, and then when it goes from the field to the graveyard, then you get to draw a card, so it replaces itself. It's just like a really good monster. And then actually like one of the low-key best cards in the extra deck is Juju. This gives you a body that can't be destroyed by battle or card effects as long as you have 2 monsters in your graveyard with the same type and attribute but different names. So that sounds really specific, but it actually does come up a lot in the grind game. So yeah, Juju's just really nice. And then also it's kind of a mini Dingirsu as well. Got a mini Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and they got a mini Dingirsu over here. This can banish 2 cards, or 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names from your graveyard to send a card on the field to the graveyard. It does target, unlike Dingirsu, but yeah, this is just, it's really nice. It sort of like gives up its protection to send a card. So it can be spot removal. And then the grown-up versions, the level 9 versions of all of these guys, we have Shen Shen, the boss monster of the deck. We've got 1 Croc, and then 1 Cannon Boy. So Shen Shen, you definitely want to summon this like on every single turn 1 because it's a macrocosmos on legs, but also in a grind game, which like this deck wants to have a grind game, this summons itself back from the graveyard every single turn except the turn that it's sent to the graveyard. So make calamities, detach it, and then summon it back on your following turn. This is just really strong. All you have to do is banish a monster with different types and attributes in your graveyard, and there are a ton of them in your main and extra deck. So you're never going to have an issue summoning this guy back. And then, of course, we have the like grown-up version of Coral Dragon, kind of. I mean, not really, but, you know, they kind of do the same thing. When it's Synchro Summon, you draw cards equal to the non-tuner monsters you used for it, so you can draw up to 2 cards sometimes. And then it, of course, gains a bunch of attack for every card in your hand, and as a quick effect, it can discard 2 cards and pop a card on the field. So it's just really nice disruption, and it's a level 9 body, so it's just a really solid card. And then Vermilion Dragon Mech, shout out to my boy Jackson for lending me this card. This card came out in Invasion Vengeance, and I was always wondering, like, when was this card going to see competitive play? And it turns out all it took was a level 9 Synchro spam deck to make that happen, so I'm really happy about that. Dragon Mech is such a cool card because it can banish a tuner from your graveyard, hand, or field, and then target any card on the field and destroy it. And it can actually destroy itself, and you want to do that sometimes because you're adding back the Lao Lao, which is a tuner, and then Lao Lao can summon itself, bring out a level 3, and then you synchro into Cloud Castle. And then Cloud Castle revives a level 9 monster from your graveyard, so you can also bring back Dragon Mech. And Dragon Mech is a soft once per turn, so you can Dragon Mech, pop, and then bring it back with Cloud Castle, and then Mech can pop again by banishing another tuner, so that's pretty neat. And then you overlay these, and I mean, we'll get to that in a minute, but like, you know what's coming. And then the last synchro, it's honestly kind of a flex spot, but we have Cypher Lord Omega. If you're able to resolve Gamma on your turn, then you just get a free Omega, rip cards out of your opponent's hand. It's 2,800, shuffles cards back out of the graveyard. Like, it's just insane. And then moving on to the Xyz monsters, we have sort of a toolbox here. We got Break Sword, just for popping cards. One Bamboozly Boy. This guy's actually like pretty good because if you don't have a way to play around Nibiru, or play through Nibiru rather, then you can just make this card and then Nibiru is not going to hurt you so bad. I don't really love it because you do make both players draw a card, and I'm never a fan of giving my opponent free draws, but if it's a choice between that or getting Nibiru'd and just like not being able to play the game, like yeah, I'll take Gossip Shadow. It's pretty good. Utopia Beyond is our one and only level 6 or a rank 6 Xyz monster, and this deck does kind of have a bit of an issue outing Dragoon. However, this is your out to Dragoon, because as soon as this is Xyz summoned, it makes all of your opponent's monsters become 0. So if you're able to bait the Dragoon, then you summon this, everything on your opponent's field becomes 0, and then you're able to just attack and then overlay into Zeus, and it's just GG from there. So Utopia Beyond is just really, really nice. And now for Maximum Flex. We got Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger. I was lucky enough to pick this up when I was over in France. It looks so nice. But yeah, obviously you can just slap this on top of the Utopia Beyond, and it does piercing damage, and then it's just more materials that you can detach for Zeus, because Zeus has to detach too. And then for the last 3 cards in the extra deck, we have Haha Zeus go brrrr. And then a very fun dragon. These cards are so unfair. It's just absurd. We have a floodgate that just says you don't get to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Have fun. And then evenly matched on legs, that's not even once per chain. I don't know what Konami was thinking when they designed these cards. But, you know, as long as they're legal, we're gonna play them. So that's a 15-card extra deck. I do want to give an honorable mention to a couple of cards that I have not talked about yet. One of them is Beatrice, so, you know, you can hard make it in this deck. Somebody smarter than me, figure out a way to use this. And, of course, it didn't happen on this past ban list, but eventually, I'm sure we're going to see Calamities get banned, as it should be. But, you know, there's definitely a hand loop variant that is a viable option after that happens. You just make Gothams, use effect, tribute, rip a card out of your opponent's hand, and then you make Cloud Castle, bring it back, rip another card, make another Cloud Castle, bring it back, rip a third card, and then overlay into the Phantom Fortress Enter Blathnir. I think that's the name of the card. And then you banish a card out of your opponent's hand. So you're hand looping them for 3 to 4 cards. So yeah, just beware, that's another option you can use for the deck. Well guys, that is going to wrap up today's deck profile of Virtual World. I really hope you have enjoyed this profile today. And if you have, then make sure to smash the like button. I mean, that's what you're supposed to say, right? Smash the like button? I don't know. I want to give a big shout out to my team, Team Lionheart. You guys are the best. And of course, to my boys, Jackson and Grant. Best friends a guy could ask for. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Until next March, Calamities go brrrr.